I didn't leave you. You left me long before you knew it.
For 16 years, I carried the title of Austin's wife and believed I had the kind of life people envied. I ran my own veterinary clinic. We lived in a beautiful house, drove nice cars, and raised our daughter, Mia, who's now 14. On the outside, everything looked perfect. But around our 10th year together, something inside me started to shift. Restlessness crept in, though I refused to acknowledge it. I ignored the warning signs, too absorbed in my own desires to see what was happening within myself. Austin's career as an aerospace engineer kept him traveling all the time. And even when he was home, his nature was quiet, consistent, and steady. I twisted those qualities into something negative, telling myself that predictable meant dull, that reliability meant he lacked passion. Looking back, I can see how selfish and immature that thinking was. Then, about 2 years ago, Devin slid into my Instagram messages. He embodied everything I believed Austin wasn't. Spontaneous, fiery, with the creative energy of an artist who still carried his college spirit. He worked freelance as an architect, drifting between coffee shops, speaking about possibilities and visions rather than numbers and contracts. After so many years of Austin's structured, careful way of life, Devin's presence felt intoxicating. Within 6 months, I was cheating on my husband. At first, I approached it with caution, meeting Devin only when Austin was away, carefully deleting our messages and guarding every move like I was living a double life. But the longer it went on, the less I cared about secrecy. A part of me actually wanted Austin to discover the truth. I thought I craved the chaos, the explosive confrontation that would prove he still loved me enough to fight for me. Instead, when I finally admitted I was leaving him for another man, he didn't yell or break down. He didn't even ask for details. He just gave a small nod, stayed calm, and said, "I understand. My lawyer will send the paperwork." That was it. 16 years together, and all he left me with were those 2 words. No begging, no anger, not even sadness I could see. I told myself I had broken him beyond repair. That same night, I laughed with Devin about it, mocking how easily Austin had given up, comparing him to a dog who had already accepted defeat, too weak to compete with someone like Devin. When Austin moved out just days later, leaving behind the house, the cars, and even our shared account so I wouldn't face financial strain, I decided it was because he had been shattered. I convinced myself I had won some sort of twisted victory. Mia seemed to adapt with surprising ease, and I used that as proof that I was making the right choices. Devin stepped into her world with energy and charm, taking her on spontaneous road trips to the beach, teaching her how to sketch architectural designs, staying up late with her watching old black and white films, and creating elaborate popcorn sundaes. Soon she started calling him her fairy tale dad, the fun, adventurous figure straight out of a Disney story, while Austin had always been the one enforcing bedtime schedules and responsibilities. Every single time she said those words, I felt validated, like even our daughter understood I had chosen the better path. The divorce process went through faster than I imagined possible, smooth almost to the point of suspicion. Austin never resisted a single request. He handed me everything without argument. The house I assumed would be mine, the cars I believed belonged to me, and even access to our shared accounts for what he called transitional support. He didn't press for custody or demand a schedule with Mia. He simply said he trusted me to do what was best for her. At one meeting, my lawyer pulled me aside and whispered, "This doesn't happen. He's being far too generous. We should examine the financial paperwork more closely before you sign anything." I cut her off before she finished, not wanting to risk disrupting what felt like my perfect outcome. I convinced myself that guilt over his absence and his constant work was driving his generosity. I believed I had gotten away clean, that I had taken everything and come out on top. God, how unbelievably foolish I was. A year later, the cracks were no longer cracks. They were gaping holes, and I was finally forced to see the truth. I'd been outmaneuvered. Remember how I bragged about Austin leaving me the house? That fantasy shattered the moment I opened a letter from a law firm. The property never truly belonged to us. It was part of the Reeves family trust, established by his grandmother 5 years earlier. Austin had always been the sole trustee and beneficiary. The house was never community property, never mine to claim. The notice was blunt. As of the finalized divorce, I was no longer a resident beneficiary. I had 60 days to move out. I called my attorney in a frenzy. She pulled out the divorce settlement and pointed to the section where I'd signed away any rights to separate property. Clear as day, it was all there in black ink, and I had missed it. I had been so obsessed with winning that I didn't even read carefully. But the worst part? She dug further and uncovered that Austin had shifted the deed from his name into the trust 13 months earlier, right around the time Devin and I started heating up. He knew. He absolutely knew and had already secured everything. When I broke the news to Devin that we needed to find a place to live, he exploded, not at Austin, but at me. "You told me you got the house in the divorce. You said you cleaned him out. I gave up my lease for this." He stormed around, hands in his hair, muttering, and for the first time, I saw something cold in his eyes. Numbers, calculations, weighing what I was really worth against the version he had imagined. Then the cars disappeared. BMW called. Tesla called. Both vehicles were leased through Austin's company, Reeves Aerospace Consulting, LLC. Since I was never an officer of the business, when had I ever been? The leases were void, and the cars had to be returned within 72 hours. Devin grew more distant after that. Nights stretched longer with client meetings that conveniently lasted until 2 in the morning. Mia asked me just yesterday why he's always angry now. I couldn't answer. It feels like the ground is crumbling beneath me. 4 months later, everything was gone. No, that's wrong. I hadn't just lost it all, I'd thrown it all away. Austin only ensured I couldn't discard what never belonged to me in the first place. My veterinary practice, the thing I thought I built with my own 2 hands, turned out not to be fully mine. Austin had funded it 8 years ago with his grandmother's inheritance, securing a 65% stake. I held 35. Buried in the operating agreement I'd signed without reading closely was a clause. The majority owner could freeze distributions if the minority partner acted against the company's interests. My affair qualified as exactly that. He had proof. Every time I slipped out of work early for appointments, receipts for hotel charges during business hours, even emails I sent from my office computer. All neatly dated, all carefully documented. I could still work there. He wasn't cruel enough to fire me, but the profits were locked away. All I had was my salary, and that barely covered rent in the apartment Devin and I scrambled to lease after losing the house. And Devin, my wild, artistic Devin. Turns out passion doesn't keep the lights on. His so-called architecture career was little more than piecemeal sketching for firms that barely paid him. No steady projects, no big clients, nothing in 2 years. He'd been coasting on credit cards and handouts from his aging mother. One night, drunk and bitter, he finally admitted the truth. "You were supposed to be my ticket out, the successful vet with the big divorce payout. Now you're just another broke woman dragging baggage behind her." He apologized the next morning, claiming he didn't mean it, but we both knew he did. And then came the final blow. My daughter, my sweet Mia, the one who once called him her fairy tale dad, found the old messages. Not the recent ones, but the buried ones, synced on my iPad from years ago when her father was overseas working an Air Force contract and I was sending undressed pictures to Devin. The expression on her face wasn't fury. It was disgust. "Dad was out working to pay for my school while you were..." She couldn't even finish the sentence. And then she was gone. She's been staying with her friend Brooke's family for 2 weeks now. She won't answer my texts, won't pick up the phone. I saw Austin at the grocery store yesterday, the first time in months. He was buying steaks and expensive wine, the kind he never touched during our marriage. He looked lighter, younger, no trace of the dad gut, dressed sharply in clothes that fit. When he saw me, he only gave a polite nod, as if I were an acquaintance. That simple distance cut deeper than anger ever could. "How's Mia?" he asked. "She's staying with a friend." He frowned. "Strange. She told me she was with you. I'll call her tonight." Of course she'd been talking to him. Even now, she was protecting me from the truth. 6 months later, Devin was gone. I dragged myself home after a brutal 12-hour shift to find his things cleared out and a sticky note on the counter. "This isn't what I signed up for. Good luck." 2 years of fire, promises of soulmates and destiny reduced to 8 words. The irony was sharp. I'd sacrificed a 16-year marriage for a man who vanished when life turned difficult. Austin had stood by me, built a home, supported my career, and I tossed him aside because he wasn't romantic enough, because he didn't write poetry or plan surprises. The real sting came when I found a box Devin left behind, printed emails with another woman, a surgeon. The dates started weeks earlier, and there they were, the same lines he'd once whispered to me. "This is temporary. She doesn't understand my artistic side. Once my project is funded, only this time I was the obstacle. I laughed until I broke into tears. The next day, Mia stopped by. Not to move back, just to collect her clothes and books. She lives with Austin now, in a sleek condo near her school with a doorman and gym. She barely looked at me while she packed. "Mom," she said finally, "Dad knew about Devin the whole time. He hired a PI. He had everything, photos, recordings. He could have destroyed you in court, but he didn't. He just wanted out clean." I whispered, "Then why didn't he fight?" She looked at me with disappointment sharper than anger. "Because dragging you through the mud would have ruined you, and you're still my mom. He said the best revenge was letting you live with exactly what you thought you wanted." She left with 2 suitcases, and the house felt like a tomb. Later, I learned what Austin had been building all along. His consulting firm had just secured a $40 million contract with the Department of Defense, something he'd been quietly preparing for through all those boring business trips. He'd also been reshaping himself, training jiu-jitsu at dawn, spending weekends at investment conferences. While I was dismantling our life, he was constructing a stronger one of his own. 8 months later, I'd seen rock bottom, and it had a view of my ex-husband's new life. I'm working at someone else's veterinary practice now. Austin bought out my 35% of our old clinic for fair market value. Enough to pay off the credit card debt I'd racked up living with Devin, but not enough to start over. Dr. Patel, who owns this clinic, is kind, but I'm just an employee now. No equity, no ownership. Just another vet taking orders. Today was Mia's school science fair. She won first place for a project on aerospace propulsion that Austin helped her with. I stood in the back of the auditorium watching them celebrate. Austin in a perfectly tailored suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and a woman on his arm I recognized from the news. She's a legislative director for the Senate Armed Services Committee, 31 years old, Georgetown law degree, speaks 3 languages. She wasn't hanging on him or trying to mark territory. She was engaged with Mia, asking about her project, making her laugh. They looked like a family, the family I threw away. Austin saw me as they were leaving, walked over while his girlfriend and Mia went to get the car. Natasha. We stood there for a moment. Up close, I could see he'd not just lost weight, but added muscle. He looked like he did in college, but with the confidence that comes from experience and success. "Mia misses you," he said finally. "She won't return my calls. Give her time. She's processing a lot. Teenage years are hard enough without..." He trailed off. "Without finding out your mother is a cheating hooker who destroyed your family," I finished bitterly. His expression didn't change. "Without having her worldview shattered. She idolized you. That's a hard fall." "Did you know?" I had to ask. "When I asked for the divorce, did you know everything?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I knew about Devin 3 weeks after that first coffee. I knew about the hotels, the lunches, the times you said you were at book club but were at his apartment. I knew about the money you were siphoning from our joint account to help him with his rent." My knees went weak. "Why didn't you say anything? What would be the point? You'd already decided I wasn't enough. Fighting would just mean months of ugly court battles that would hurt Mia, so I prepared, protected what was mine, documented what I needed to, and waited for you to make your choice. You let me hang myself." He shook his head. "I let you be who you are. The hanging was all you." His girlfriend pulled up in a car I didn't recognize, one of those new electric Porsches. Mia was in the back, laughing at something on her phone. "Austin," I said as he turned to leave, "for what it's worth, I'm sorry. I'm so freaking sorry." He looked back at me for just a second. I saw something flicker in his eyes. Not love, not hate, maybe pity. "I know," he said. "Take care of yourself, Natasha." Then he got in the car and drove away with his new perfect life while I stood in an empty parking lot holding the ashes of the one I burned down. 1 year later, this will be my last update. I need to close this chapter, and Reddit has been my only outlet for the shame and regret that's been eating me alive. It's been a year since I left Austin for Devon, a year since I thought I'd won everything. Instead, I'm sitting in a 1-bedroom apartment eating takeout Chinese alone on a Friday night, writing to strangers on the internet because I've alienated everyone in my real life. The full scope of Austin's strategic retreat still takes my breath away. My therapist, yes, I'm in therapy now twice a week, trying to figure out how I became someone capable of such cruelty and delusion, says Austin executed what's called a tactical withdrawal. It's a military term. You retreat not out of weakness, but to choose better ground for the real battle. Except there was no battle. That's what haunts me. He never fought because he never needed to. While I was sneaking around feeling clever and desired, he was restructuring every asset to protect it from community property claims, building a business that would explode in value after our divorce, getting himself into the best shape of his life, documenting my affair with the precision of a military operation, letting me destroy my own credibility and relationships. He played the long game while I was playing checkers. Last month, I had to ask him for a favor. God, it eliminated me to make that call. Mia needed braces and my insurance wouldn't cover them fully. I couldn't afford the difference. He didn't hesitate. Send me the orthodontist's information, I'll handle it. No lecture, no I told you so. No making me grovel, just handled it like he handled everything, efficiently, without drama. Austin, I said before he hung up, why are you still helping me? I'm not helping you. I'm helping my daughter. The fact that it benefits you is incidental. That stung more than anger would have. Mia and I are slowly rebuilding. She comes for dinner once a week now. We don't talk about Devin or the affair. We talk about her school, her friends, her plans for college. She wants to study aerospace engineering like her dad. The pride in her voice when she talks about him is a knife that twists every time. She told me something last week that explained everything. When Austin was 12, his parents went through an ugly divorce. His mom had cheated with his dad's business partner. The court battle was vicious, public, humiliating. It destroyed his father financially and emotionally. Austin swore he'd never let that happen to him or his kids. So when I cheated, he didn't repeat his father's mistakes. He didn't fight in the mud. He didn't try to hold on to someone who didn't want him. He simply protected what mattered and walked away. He told me, Mia said, stirring her pasta, the best revenge is a life well lived. But sometimes the second best revenge is letting someone else learn their own lessons. The truth is, I'm not the sufferer in this story. I'm not even the villain. I'm just a cautionary tale about a woman who had everything and torched it because she confused stability for stagnation, confused quiet strength for weakness, confused a man's lack of drama for lack of passion. Austin's getting married next summer. His fiancée is pregnant. They're having a boy. Mia is excited about being a big sister. She shows me ultrasound photos on her phone, talks about how they're converting Austin's home office into a nursery. The life I could have had plays out in front of me in real time through my daughter's stories. The successful husband, the growing family, the financial security, the respect. I had all of it. All of it. And I threw it away for a man who wrote pretty words and made me feel 22 again. My therapist asked me what I've learned. Here's the list. A quiet man isn't a weak man. Sometimes the most dangerous men are the ones who don't need to raise their voice. Someone who truly loves you doesn't need to constantly perform that love. Austin loved me in 1,000 quiet ways I only recognized after they were gone. The grass isn't greener on the other side. It's greener where you water it. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Devin showed me he was a dreamer without a plan. Austin showed me he was a planner who made dreams reality. You can't build happiness on the destruction of others. My happiness with Devin was built on betraying Austin. That foundation was always going to crumble. I'm not writing this for sympathy. I don't deserve it. I'm writing this because maybe someone else out there is thinking about leaving their boring partner for an exciting affair. Maybe someone else is mistaking steadiness for stupidity, silence for weakness, strategy for surrender. Don't be me. Don't confuse a man who won't fight with a man who can't fight. Don't mistake tactical withdrawal for defeat, because sometimes by the time you realize you've won the battle, you've already lost the war. And sometimes the person you thought you defeated was never fighting you at all. They were just clearing the battlefield for their real victory. I thought I'd broken Austin when he didn't fight the divorce. The truth is, he'd already won before I even knew we were playing. Austin, if you ever read this, I know you won't. You were never one for social media. But if you do, you deserved better. Mia deserved better. Hell, even I deserved better for myself. Thank you for having the strength to let me fail and the grace to not destroy me when you could have. Your son is lucky to have you as a father. I'm sorry I couldn't see the man you were until I lost the right to call you mine.